Hello and welcome back. In this series, I want to go through the entire Elyos campaign. I will not only explain the campaign quests and their meaning for the world of Atreya, but also tell you about all the important characters and their personal story. We will also include special places of interest that you always wondered about. And lastly, I will explain all the dungeons, their backstory, the reason we go and kill everything there, and how we follow up on our tasks after the dungeon. So lean back, relax, and let's start. On our journey through Heiron, we help a lot of people, and that's also why we are here in the Abolus Haven at the moment. Here we meet a centurion named Tessia. She's talking with us about the undead, how she feels sorry about their fate, and how we still do not know why they rise or why they become monsters. But some people report an undead appearing near Abolus Haven, and apparently he tries to speak to the villagers. But no one was brave enough to approach him, so nobody knows if there is actually something to this rumor. So we investigate. The undead named Casillas tells us how he and all the people around him were slaughtered by a Kral attack. But as he died, he rose back up as an undead, and it was not only him. He was surrounded by his co-workers, all the loyal servants of the Medeus Manor. But even though he is undead, he still feels the responsibility he had when he was alive, which is to look after his lord and to manage the staff. And he is not alone with this. The co-workers that did also rise up as undead also still do the work they did when they were alive. He wants to help them and bring them eternal rest, but he cannot do that. So he asks for our help.
Look for Calcus the Vigilante at the crossroads west of Medeus Manor. Mempion the Pig Keeper will be in the manor's west field. The maid, Spina, is inside the manor. And you'll find the sharecropper, Layden, in the east field. Now go, and bring their bones here to me.
One thing that stands out through our talks with the undead is that they feel betrayed by the Devas, saying things like, they say the Devas' calling is to protect humans, but they turned their backs on us when we needed them. After we collected their bones, we buried them in the cemetery and reported to Casillas. We told him that he should rest as well, but he refused, saying that he has to make sure none of the other staff members are still suffering in this world as an undead. Only then can he move on. We did report this to Tessia, the centurion that initially sent us to investigate the matter. But there is so much to this that is left open and unanswered. So we do the only logical thing. We go to the library and see if we can find something. And indeed we find a book with the title The Tragedy of Heiron. It tells the story of a man that lost everything, but the story begins before that. Rumors in Heiron spread that something suspicious was happening in the Kishar village, but no one was really worried. The people of the Medeus Manor and the Orton farm were nervous because Kral could attack them anytime without warning. The manor owner Medeus and his steward Cassius sent many letters to the fortress asking for help. But the fortress had no bodies to spare. All forces were fighting against the Asmodeans in the abyss. Yeaparan village, where the man lived, was relatively quiet and safe behind its moat of water, because the Kishakral do not like water at all. Although afraid of possible attacks, the people at the manor and the Orton farm believed they were safe. They thought the Kral would never attack a human village, and even if they did, the fortress wouldn't abandon their farms. They believed that if something horrible happened, their neighbors in the Yeaparan village would come to help them. They were wrong. One day at dawn, the Kishakral invaded the Orton farm. But no one came to rescue the people. The fight between the Kral and humans was one-sided. How could humans who only knew farming withstand the superior physical power of the Kral? After destroying the Orton farm, the Kral advanced to the Medeus Manor. The people of the Medeus Manor were no match for the Kral either. Wielding farming tools, they desperately fought against the invading Kral, but all were slaughtered in less than an hour. The villagers of Yeaparan heard the news the next day. A woman who managed to escape with her child told the tragic story. After hearing these news, the villagers ran to their aid, but none could approach the farm. The Kral were everywhere. The people were so afraid that they turned and ran. Back at the village, they started to erect barricades and sent a letter to the fortress, begging for help. The fortress did finally send guardians, yet it was not easy to drive out the Kral. The prolonged battle impacted the village disastrously. The Orton farm at the Medeus Manor no longer provided crops, the only source of income for the Yeaparan village. Hugos closed their shops and left the village first. Merchants who traded agricultural products were also hit hard, so they also left the village. Sailors and shipyard workers had to leave for other ports. The once thriving village became a desolate place. However, it was not the end of the tragedy. It was only the beginning. Just as people slowly began to forget the tragedy that befell the Orton farm and the Medeus Manor, one of the villagers disappeared. A young woman who had gone to draw water from the spring never came back. This woman was Ilbrain, the lover of the man in this story. He ran out of the village and desperately searched for her. On the road between the Orton farm and the Medeus Manor, he found her shoes. He kept looking for her, and then he saw an Anobite holding a torn piece of Ilbrain's clothing. He picked up a club and furiously attacked the Anobite. The uncontrollable anger gave him great power. He shattered the Anobite into pieces, but that wasn't enough. He kept attacking other Anobites around him as well and shattered them too. But then he could not believe what he saw. One of the Anobite's belongings was familiar. It was a buckle that Ganges, his childhood friend, used to wear. The monster he bashed into bits turned out to be his friend who had been killed by the Kral. After that day, more and more undead appeared at the Orton farm and the Medeus Manor. The residents of the Yeaparan village, who now knew that the undead were once their neighbors, friends and lovers, could not kill them. The people did not talk about the undead and avoided the Orton farm and Medeus Manor. Even those people who have lived in the village for generations began to leave. The man fell in deep depression. He felt the heavy guilt he had to carry. He couldn't protect his love Ilbrain. Maybe if he helped the Orton farm and the Medeus Manor when the Kral invaded, she would still be alive. The encounter with Ganges placed even more guilt upon his shoulders. He didn't help Ganges when he needed him, and now he had killed him again. Eventually the man left not only the village, but he also left Heiron. However, he could not run from the guilt, the pain, the remorse. He couldn't forget. Sleep only brought nightmares. He couldn't eat. There was no rest from the vivid memories and the endless pain and guilt and sorrow. He decided to end his suffering with death. He simply wanted to rest. And when he picked up the blade to take his life, in that moment, he ascended. He felt like he was cursed at first, but then he realized what he had to do. It was his duty to return the undead of the Orton farm and the Medeus manor, once his neighbors and friends, to the flow of ether. So he said to himself, I kill them, that is true, but it is the only way to give peace to their souls. I will not give up, even if it takes decades, centuries, or even lifetimes. I have a long life to live. Perhaps I can finish this job one day. The moment I send back the last undead to the flow of ether is the moment when I am free at last. And with that, we have reached the end of this story. A little side note at the end, Medeus the Vile was the lord of the Medeus manor. He is still in Heiron as an undead boss monster, and is also involved in an Asmodean spy mission. In this mission, Balvic, which we cover in a future video, asks the Asmodean player to kill Medeus the Vile and bring the fragments of his soul to Balvic. Elyos are destroying Balvic's cursed obelisk, and since Medeus' soul is as sinister as Balvic's himself, he is sure he can produce plenty more cursed obelisks with Medeus' soul alone. Now, I personally could not find out why Medeus was such a bad guy, but if you found a quest that explains more, leave a comment below and let the rest of us know as well. The Medeus boss is actually quite nicely designed for a little side boss that exists since the base game. First, he opens the fight with a heavy-hitting AoE spell. At 75% he will cast an AoE sleep for 1 minute. That also drains a lot of mana. Then he puts a damage reflect buff on himself and spawns 3 additional monsters to attack you. And he will repeat that every minute or so. Starting at 50% and lower, he will also cast an AoE curse that puts a 30-minute debuff on you. This debuff makes mana potions useless, but it can be cleansed or simply removed with a greater healing potion. There are also a lot of monsters around him, so be careful where and how you fight him. However, he has very little HP for a hero grade monster. The drops are mediocre, ranging from blue armor to a golden orb called Medeus' Heart. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.